These situations are real, and our need to protect women in this country is real, and this bill does important public safety good, and it deserves an honest and real debate.
The honourable member will have 3 minutes and 15 seconds coming to him when we resume debate after oral questions. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Repentigny. The little-known live-in caregivers program fails to protect foreign workers who come here to work as caregivers. They come with the hope of making a bit of money and often are able to apply for residency after 2 years. But we don't see them in public, Mr. Speaker. They're confined to their employers' homes. They don't know much about their rights. Often they don't know our languages, but are prepared to do a great deal to help their families. They depend on the good faith of a single employer, without whom they can be deported. So you'll agree with me that the employer has a disproportionate amount of power over these women. These conditions create many cases of abuse, violence, unpaid work, intimidation, and harassment. For that reason, I'm honored to be the sponsor of a petition initiated by the Centre International de Solidarité Ouvrière, urging the federal government to guarantee better working conditions for these women. Let's be many to sign it. Let's give a voice to these women who all too often are not heard.
West.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I have the privilege of working with a group of brilliant, inspiring young people as part of the London West Youth Council.
Their time collecting non-perishable food items for Inova, an organization that provides shelter for abused women and their children. They filled 23 large bags with breakfast items, which were then delivered. I'm excited to continue to work with my youth council and to show them that there are many ways to be leaders of today.
Their passion and their competency inspire me, as does the positive change that they are making in our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, summer is just 2 days away, which means communities in my riding are gearing up to host visitors from around the world at our world-class events. This Canada Day, the historic Gold Rush town of Barkerville, will celebrate the 150th anniversary of the very first Dominion Day ever. And Mr. Speaker, summer also means the start of my second favorite season, rodeo season. This Canada Day long weekend, my hometown of Williams Lake hosts the 92nd annual anniversary of the greatest show on dirt, the world-famous Williams Lake Stampede. Visitors flock to the Caribou from far and wide to enjoy world-class hospitality and several days of top rodeo stars from across North America competing in premier rodeo events. Mr. Speaker, and just a couple weeks later, just up Highway 97, Quesnel will be hosting Billy Barker Days and the 52nd annual Quesnel Rodeo. Mr. Speaker, it's the ropes and the reins, the joy and the pain, and they call the thing rodeo. Yeah!
The honourable member for Labrador. Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize June 21st as Indigenous Peoples Day. National Indigenous Peoples Day is a day to celebrate and recognize the ongoing contributions of First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples throughout Canada. This year, Canadians across the country will celebrate and acknowledge the rich culture, heritage and contributions of Indigenous people and what they have contributed to our country, Canada. On June 21st, from coast to coast, Canadians are invited to participate in this event through powwows, community events, sports competitions, and musical performances, all which will highlight the rich and distinct heritage of Indigenous peoples in this country. It is also a day and an opportunity for all of us, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians, to learn about our rich history, traditions, and cultures of Indigenous people. It is a critical step for all of us on this journey of reconciliation. I wish you all a wonderful Indigenous Day in Canada.
The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, the 1964 Columbia River Treaty provided economic and flood prevention benefits, but also caused significant environmental and cultural losses. local communities and First Nations were not consulted during the original negotiations. The people of Kootenay, Columbia believe that environmental priorities, including the restoration of salmon, must be incorporated into the renegotiation of the treaty. As Mayor of Cranbrook, I helped write a report from local government on recommendations for the future of the CRT. Current negotiations must build on the important work that has already been done by local communities and ensure that First Nations have a seat at the table. I urge and invite the federal government negotiators to visit our region and to really listen to those impacted so that we can get the best possible deal for British Columbians and all Canadians. And Mr. Speaker, while the CRT will be 54 years old on July 1st, my constituent Mary Shapitka of Cranbrook will turn 100 years old that day. Happy 100th birthday, Mary.
The honourable member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 4 decades, Interim Place has profoundly changed the lives of many women and children in Peel Region by helping them break cycles of violence and providing an opportunity to build new lives free of abuse. I recently attended Interim Place's second annual Purple Tie Luncheon, an event that focused on the role that men must play in promoting equality and stopping gender-based violence. I'd like to thank Sharon Floyd, Julia Robinson, staff, volunteers, donors, supporters, and the entire board of directors for serving as powerful agents of social change in our community. Their hard work, commitment, and advocacy on behalf of vulnerable women and girls is an inspiration not just to our community, but to all Canadians. On August 28th, Interim Place is hosting its 7th annual Step Forward to End Violence Against Women walk in beautiful Port Credit. Mr. Speaker, I encourage everyone in Peel Region to walk with us on that day to demonstrate our commitment to ending violence against women and girls. Thank you.
The honourable member for Huron-Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Summer's here again, and it's time to remind all Canadians of the great things to visit here in Bruce. If you like theatre, check out the Blythe Festival Theatre, Huron Country Playhouse, and many other local theatres. Festivals, the Goderich Celtic Festival, King Carden Scottish Festival, Blues Fest, Jazz Fest, Music in the Fields, the Zurich Bean Festival, to name just a few. How about homecomings? Check out Lucknow, Chepstow, and King Carden homecomings. Outdoors, beautiful campgrounds, Point Farms Provincial Park, McGregor Park, horse racing in Clinton, motocross in Walton, dozens of golf courses, hiking trails, biking trails, kayaking, canoeing, hunting, fishing, breweries, wineries, lighthouse tours, farmers markets, museums, beautiful sandy beaches, and the best sunsets in the world. In 1 minute, I can't list all the great things happening in Huron-Bruce this summer, but I can assure you one thing. If you visit once, you'll make Huron-Bruce your new home forever.
The honourable member for West Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Canadians plan their summer holidays, I extend a warm invitation to visit Nova Scotia and discover all that we have to offer. Yes. In Western Nova Scotia, there's so much to enjoy. If you are a history buff, visit Port Royal, the oldest permanent European settlement in Canada, or visit the historic Cape Fourchou Lighthouse near Yarmouth. If you are an outdoor adventurist, you can explore Kejimkujik National Park and see North America's darkest skies, or embark on a whale-watching excursion off Briar Island in the beautiful Bay of Fundy.
If you want to discover your Acadian roots, you can participate in the oldest Acadian festival in the world in Baie Sainte-Marie, or take a trip back to the 19th century at the historic Acadian village in Pubnico West.
Through the Annapolis Valley's apple orchards, sip on award-winning Nova Scotian wines, and dine on the world's finest seafood. Whether you visit for the history, the scenery, or the food, you will experience hospitality that is second to none in beautiful Nova Scotia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, since we'll soon be leaving for the summer, I couldn't miss the opportunity to mention Saint-Jean-Baptiste Day. For a long time, Saint-Jean-Baptiste was a Catholic holiday. Then it became the national holiday for French-speaking Canadians in 1834. Now, as Quebec's national holiday, Saint-Jean also represents a celebration of the culture and language of all Francophones in Canada, who represent an integral and important part of our cultural life. Quebec, as a founding nation in Canada, is right to be proud of its roots when we think about its values for openness, fairness, the social safety net, and its arts, which, through music, literature, cinema, and fine arts, showcase our heritage. So I wish all a happy Saint-Jean-Baptiste Day. Let's express the pride in who we are today loudly and clearly.
Honourable member for Peace River Westlaw.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to highlight Not in My City, an initiative championed by the country music's Hall of Famer Paul Brandt. Not in My City works to cultivate awareness and action to fight sexual exploitation and human trafficking in Calgary and across Canada. The statistics around human trafficking alone in Canada are staggering. Indigenous peoples make up only 4% of the Canadian population and yet represent 50% of Canadians' human trafficking victims. 75% of prostitution begins in childhood, and 93% of Canada's human trafficking victims come from within Canada. Next week, Not in My City will bring together businesses, organizations, and First Nations groups, along with the police, health, and child services, and not-for-profit agencies around Calgary to build an action plan to prevent sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. I want to congratulate Paul Brandt and the Not in My City team for their relentless work on this important issue and invite all members to join the fight against sexual exploitation and to declare Not in My City. Thank you.
Honourable member for Don Valley West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With rumors of adjournment, this may be my last opportunity to thank this year's pages for their tremendous support. Some of them may get work this summer through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. 63 employers in Don Valley West will receive over $800,000 through CSJ, creating quality summer jobs for students. They will gain valuable experience working for organizations like the Canadian Film Centre, the Toronto Intercity Rugby Foundation, TAC Sports, Plan International, Habitat for Humanity, the CNIB, Hull and Bloorview Hospital. Close to my heart, they will also work for a number of religious organizations, the Greek Orthodox Metropolis of Toronto, Islamic Society of Toronto, the Salvation Army, St. Clement of Orhead Macedonian Orthodox Cathedral, Trinity Presbyterian Church, York Mills. CSJ students gain the experience and job skills needed for their future. Employers and communities gain young talent they need to continue to succeed and thrive. May they all and you have a happy...
Honourable member for South Shore, St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, June is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and something my family will be talking about as much as possible because we know how quickly your life can change. My sister-in-law, Karen, fell down the stairs last August and suffered a massive brain injury. After 2 surgeries and 3 weeks on life support, my brother had to make the difficult decision to remove Karen from the machines keeping her alive. Her brain had limited function, and we were told she would have no quality of life if she lived. But this is a happy story, Mr. Speaker, because Karen not only survived, she recovered 100%. Wow. Something nobody thought was possible. The brain is an amazing thing, and more research needs to be done to know how brain injuries can be overcome. On behalf of my brother and our whole family, I would like to thank all the wonderful caregivers, doctors, nurses, and specialists that saw our family through this very difficult time. And I encourage you and all members of this House to support brain research. And I'd like to take this time to wish a very happy birthday to my sister-in-law, Karen McGuinness O'Hagan.
Honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to stand today to recognize the month of June as Pride Month. It is a time when the LGBTQ community, their families and allies come together to celebrate who they are and who they love. Whether through parades and festivals, rallies, or countless other events, Pride is an important time for the LGBTQ2 movement, both at home and around the world. In many countries identifying as LGBTQ, it's illegal, and too many members of the community are persecuted and even jailed simply for loving who they love. Luckily in Canada, Mr. Speaker, Pride doesn't end in June. Festivals in cities and communities in our country continue throughout the summer. Personally, I am looking forward to celebrating London's Pride Festival from July 19th to 29th and invite members to come in and celebrate with our community. To all those celebrating this month and throughout the summer, happy Pride, and never stop being proud of who you are. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Vimy.
Mr. Speaker, Me Too and Time's Up have shone a light on the consequences of sexism, misogyny, and gender-based violence, renewing calls for gender equality. A year ago today, our government announced its time Canada's strategy to prevent and address gender-based violence. This first federal strategy on gender-based violence with an investment of nearly $200 million, is based on prevention, support for survivors and their families, and the promotion of responsive justice and legal systems. Notre gouvernement a agi.
Our government has taken action over the past year. Some 7,000 new and refurbished beds for women fleeing violence. The examination of baseless sexual abuse cases. The investment of $20 million in projects designed to support survivors of violence and their families. Our government has shown its commitment to ending gender-based violence and helping survivors to rebuild their lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of at least 50,000 workers employed directly by the steel and aluminum industries and the communities that rely directly and indirectly on their income. It's incumbent on the government to work with the U.S. to get a permanent exemption to these tariffs. Canadians know they've been imposed on us as an unfair bullying tactic to influence the renegotiation of NAFTA. We know Donald Trump has used national security as an excuse for these tariffs. Now he is threatening our auto workers with his tariffs. Jobs my community depends on, and yours. A recent TD Economics report tells of 160,000 job losses, mostly in Ontario. This government must stand up for Canadian workers and act on national strategies the NDP's been calling for years. The strength of our country depends on the strength of our communities. Our workers are that strength. We need to be their backbone now more than ever.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I want to take a moment here to congratulate the new Member of Parliament for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, Richard Martel. Following 6 months without a representative, the people of this magnificent region finally have a voice in Ottawa, that of an authentic, passionate and hardworking man, who I've learned to know over the past few months. So it's with great pride that we welcome the new member into our caucus. The people of Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord sent out a strong message to the Liberal government and to Canada. The Conservative Party is the only serious alternative to the current government and the only political party able to defend the interests of Quebec in a strong and united Canada in Ottawa. I want to congratulate Richard for his convincing victory last night. I want to thank all of the members in our wonderful Conservative family and the volunteers who work tirelessly. I'd like to thank all of these people. Now Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord will be well represented here in the House of Commons.
The honourable member for Mississauga Centre.
Speaker, Tariq Lubani was recently in the news when he was shot by the Israeli military in Gaza. Our government has called for an independent investigation into what happened and into the reports of use of excessive force that led to the death and injury of thousands, including children and paramedics. Mr. Speaker, I'm not exaggerating when I say I received over 20,000 emails from Canadians who are upset by what happened. I want to thank our consular officials for assisting him during his ordeal. I'm pleased to say, Mr. Speaker, that Dr. Lubani is recovering well and is here with us in Ottawa today. Dr. Lubani is an emergency physician and an associate professor at Western University. Tariq is also an innovator. He designed low-cost 3D printed medical devices that can save lives in areas where medical supplies are scarce. Dr. Lubani should be recognized for dedicating his life to helping others. His voice is an important voice in today's world. I'm grateful for his humanitarian service and his commitment to peace.
oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I wish to congratulate all of Canadians who attended the by-election. And I would like to congratulate Richard Martel, the new member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Conservatives will always respect provincial jurisdictions. Quebec and other provinces want to forbid their citizens from growing marijuana at home. Why is the Prime Minister refusing to listen to this request from Quebec? The Honourable Minister for Health. Protecting the health and safety of Canadians is our #1 priority. Growing cannabis at home will reduce access to the illegal market. Canadians will be able to grow these plants and maintain them safely and responsibly at home. We're also following the recommendation made by other jurisdictions and working groups that have looked at the issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, aluminum workers are worried for their jobs. This is an issue we heard a great deal about in Saguenay over the last few weeks. For weeks now, Canadian aluminum is being targeted by unfair tariffs when aluminum from the United States is exempted. Why has the Prime Minister not yet imposed Canadian tariffs? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, the tariffs imposed by the United States on steel and aluminum are illegal and unfair. The so-called national security motivation is absurd and insulting. We are going to impose penalties that are equivalent to what the United States imposed in an unfair way. We are holding a consultation period with our industry, workers, and consumers, and we need to respect that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Protecting the Canadian economy, the Prime Minister inherited a strong fiscal position, but he weakened Canada's position by squandering that and racking up massive deficits. Now, with the threat of new U.S. tariffs, TD Bank is warning that up to 160,000 jobs in the Canadian auto sector could be at risk. Obviously, workers and their families are worried. However, it was no surprise that under this administration we would face these types of trade disruptions. So why did the Finance Minister table a budget without any mention of a contingency plan for Canada's economy?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
I'd like to bring us back to remember what we actually were left with, $150 billion in additional debt from the last government. We're also left with a high unemployment rate, 7.1%. We're also left with a low growth rate. So what we've done is we've turned all that around. Lowest unemployment rate we've seen in 40 years. Highest growth rate we've seen in a decade. And importantly, Mr. Speaker, what the member doesn't quite understand is, in fact, that yes, we do create a contingency in every budget. We did that this year, as we've done it in past years. We're doing what we need to do to help Canadian families.
Order. Order. Members who feel they have to yell out when someone else has the floor ought to be embarrassed at their inability to control themselves.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. I would like to congratulate Richard Martel for his victory, who will be joining us here soon. A file that we heard about a great deal in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord was the issue of legalizing marijuana being put forward by the Liberals and the Prime Minister. They are not respecting provincial jurisdiction, which means we're heading directly into legal wrangling over the issue. Who's going to pay for all that? The Canadians. Why does this Prime Minister not want to respect provincial jurisdictions? The Honourable Minister of Health. Protecting the health and safety of Canadians is our #1 priority. And we want to make sure that we protect our youth and that organized crime does not make profits. We're going to displace the black market. The working group, as well as work done in other jurisdictions, demonstrates that cultivating cannabis at home is the right solution. The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. After the Trans Mountain File with British Columbia and Alberta, after the issue of the carbon tax with Ontario and Saskatchewan, today we're adding the file of growing cannabis at home with Quebec and Manitoba. That means that right now, over 50% of provinces, which represent over 79% of the population, will be caught up in legal conflicts that are going to cost billions for the public. Why does this Prime Minister stubbornly refuse to recognize provincial jurisdictions? The Honourable Minister of Health. The protection of Canadians' health and safety is our absolute priority. The Harper government's approach did not work. It allowed criminals to generate profits, and it did not keep cannabis out of the hands of our children. We thank the Senate for the work it has done, and we agree with the majority of the amendments presented by Conservative and Independent senators. C-45 will be the opportunity to achieve our objectives and to ensure a responsible transition towards a legal cannabis market. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette-Témiscouata, Les Basques. Mr. Speaker, the Trump administration has been separating the children of immigrants at the border. 2,000 crying, screaming children who sleep on the ground. Families are being torn apart. All they wanted to do was to find a better life. It is time for the Canadian government to denounce this inhuman situation. How can this government consider that the United States are still a safe third country when they lock up children and separate immigrant families? The Minister of Transportation. Mr. Speaker, I think all Canadians are troubled by the images that they have seen recently from the United States. Every child is precious. We have to do everything we can to not separate children from their parents. When a family of asylum seekers comes to our country, we do everything that we can to prevent them from being separated. In the rare cases where detention is necessary, we try to minimize the time that this process takes. The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette-Témiscouata, Les Basques. What is it going to take for the government to denounce the situation? We have an inhuman situation being lived through by thousands of immigrants and their children. These are the ugliest of images. What is it going to take to denounce the barbaric practices of the Trump administration? The international community has denounced the cruelty of using children as tools of dissuasion. If the Conservatives disagree with this, they should say so. The government must do what it can and officially suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement. Why is it refusing to do so? The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I think all Canadians are troubled by the images coming out of the United States. The lives of children are very, very precious, and their security and their well-being has to be foremost in our minds. We are required under the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to monitor the United States domestic asylum policy to make sure that any changes in the asylum system continue to meet their designation as a safe third country. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees in Canada does the same analysis, and we continue to monitor those developments.
Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Even former Conservative Minister Chris Alexander is calling for the suspension of the Safe Third Country Agreement. Trump is taking migrant children hostage and putting them in cages to advance his political agenda. The UN Human Rights Commissioner calls this unconscionable. The UNHCR acknowledges Trump's tactics are inhumane. Amnesty International calls it, quote, nothing short of torture. Will the Prime Minister state the obvious that the United States is no longer a safe country for migrant children?
Honourable Minister of Immigration. Order.
Mr. Speaker, I think all Canadians are troubled by the images that are emerging from the United States. The lives of these children are very, very precious, and we continue to monitor any changes to the domestic asylum system in the United States as we are required to do so by the Immigration, Refugee and Protection Act. The UNHCR in Canada does the same work. The Safe Third Country Agreement, the honourable member should know, is not about denial of asylum, it's about the orderly management of asylum seekers between the United States and Canada, and actually has been a very good agreement for Canada moving forward.
Member for Vancouver East.
Canadians are calling for action. It's about lives, real people, real children being subjected to torture. Former Minister Loy Axworthy, the chair of the World Refugee Council, and Alan Rock, former UN ambassador, are clearly stating that the U.S. is no longer a safe country for asylum seekers. Canada must not be complicit in this inhumane treatment of children. Will the Prime Minister find the courage and suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, here's some action. Here's some action that our government has taken. We've provided global leadership under the UN Global Compact on migration, working with respected former Supreme Court Justice Louise Arbour. We have invested over $138 million on a national immigration.
I'd ask the honourable member for Vancouver East to come to order and not to be yelling when someone else has the floor, as she's been doing. The honourable Minister of Immigration has the floor. Order. Order.
Mr. Speaker, we have reduced immigration detention by 30%. All the stakeholders in this field have applauded our efforts to make sure that we've minimized the use of immigration detention. Groups such as the Canadian Council for Refugees have, quote, said these new instructions are a concrete step towards ending the detention of children on immigration grounds.
The honourable member for Milton.
And another day of this government's carbon tax cover-up. You know, it's come to the point, Mr. Speaker, where it's even experts at the University of Calgary giving testimony to the Senate Committee on Energy that actually tells us what we could be looking at in terms of cost to families. That number is $1,100, Mr. Speaker. So the minister has a choice here. Either she can accept that number that's been presented to the Senate Committee, or she can tell us what her department says the number it is. Which will it be?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we know that climate change is real. Canadians expect us to protect the environment and to grow the economy. That's why we're getting rid of coal-fired power and the pollution that it causes. We're investing billions of dollars in clean transportation, in communities, and in conservation. And we are making sure that polluters will pay so that we all can have a healthy environment as we go forward. The Conservatives have no plan to tackle climate change and no plan to grow the economy. It's clearly not a priority for them. Unlike the Conservatives, we know that the economy and the environment go together.
Honourable order. The honourable member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, the priority on this side are for people like senior citizens in Nova Scotia who are going to be suffering because they're going to have $1,100 that they have to come up with every year. And here's a StatsCan number, too, that's real, Mr. Speaker. 94% of Nova Scotia seniors are low-income seniors. Where are they going to find $1,100 in tax money to give to this failed Liberal government? Mr. Speaker, when are they going to give it up and do what's right and get rid of that?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the environment and the economy, we have a clear choice. We can put the health of the environment and our communities at risk, as the Conservatives would do, or we can take real action to address climate change and to grow a clean growth economy. Mr. Speaker, in opposition to the practical and cost-effective measures that we're taking to fight climate change and grow the economy, either the Conservatives don't know what real action on climate change is, or they simply don't care. In the modern world, the economy and the environment go together. We have a climate plan that will allow us to address greenhouse gas emissions and grow our economy going forward, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the citizens in Chicoutimi sent a clear message. First of all, they're trusting the real alternative represented by the Conservative Party, and they've started to have enough of the Liberal attitude, which is increasing fees on citizens and businesses, namely the Liberal carbon tax, which is going to apply to all Canadians. The citizens in Chicoutimi have had enough of these additional taxes. Why is the government continuing its cover-up about its Liberal carbon tax? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Climate change is real. Canadians expect us to protect the environment and develop our economy.
That is why are going to tax pollution and invest in clean energy as well as conservation. The Conservatives have no plan to tackle climate change. Clearly, this is not a priority for them, but for us, it is an absolute priority. We're going to tackle climate change and grow the economy. The Honourable Member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. I'll be happy to publicly repeat what I said privately earlier. Congratulations for your efforts in French. We all appreciate it. But it's not because he speaks French that I agree with what he says. Let me correct that. Under the Conservative government, greenhouse gas emissions went down by 2.2%, and the economy grew. 16.9% increase of the GDP, and greenhouse gases went down. That's what all Canadians want, and we did it without a Liberal carbon tax. Why are the Liberals insisting on going down this road? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are seeing the impacts of climate change, and everyone is expecting real measures. They know that this is the right choice for our economy, for our children, and for our grandchildren. Our plan is working. We've obtained the strongest rate of economic growth of all G7 countries. We will continue to work with Canadians to find intelligent solutions to fight climate change and create good jobs for the middle class.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Here's what the Finance Department says about the costs of the carbon tax. These higher costs would then cascade through the economy in the form of higher prices, thus leading all firms and consumers to pay more for goods and services. Key findings are blacked out, Mr. Speaker. So we don't know how much more. The Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party quoted one report saying that it would cost $1,100 a family. The Taxpayers Federation says it's $2,600 a family. Which of those two numbers is correct?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the environment and the economy, we have a clear choice. We can put the health of our environment at risk, or we can take strong action to address greenhouse gas emissions and to grow our economy. Mr. Speaker, we've developed, in conjunction and partnership with the provinces and territories, a plan to address greenhouse gas emissions and to grow the economy going forward. Mr. Speaker, that is an important measure for our children, for our grandchildren, and for the health of our economy going forward, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, we've quoted two very credible sources on the costing of this Liberal carbon tax for the average Canadian family, and both times the Parliamentary Secretary refused to answer the question. So the Deputy Leader quoted a cost of $1,100 per family. Are we getting closer to the real cost, Mr. Speaker? What about the Taxpayers Federation? $2,600 per family. Am I getting warmer now? Is it more than $2,600? Why don't they just end this cover-up now and tell us what this tax will cost the average family?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is very clear to this House that this Conservative Party is no different than the Conservative Party of Stephen Harper, a party that actually did not believe in climate change, did nothing to address climate change, did nothing to advance a clean growth economy going forward. This government believes in protecting the environment for the future generations to come, but doing so in a thoughtful way that will grow our economy for the future, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
Order. L'honorable député de Laurier-Saint.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, no parent wants to see their child torn from their arms, and yet that's what's happening at the Mexican border, where the Trump administration is taking children hostage, basically, to collect political capital. The minister says he recognizes how important it is to be firm and unequivocal to protect human rights. That's what the Prime Minister said. But we need to defend these children with words and actions. Will the government denounce the situation and suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement?
The Honourable
Minister for Transportation. As I said, I think that all Canadians are troubled by the images coming from the United States. The lives of these children are precious, and we need to think of their safety and their well-being. We have spared no effort to improve the detention system here in Canada and to reduce as much as possible using detention in the immigration system. What is happening in the United States is simply unacceptable.
Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister said in this House that he won't play politics when it comes to the Safe Third Country Agreement. This is not a game. Children are being torn from their parents and being held hostages in cages. And this Prime Minister, this government has the power to do something about it. We are not playing. Lives are being destroyed, and Canada is being called to action. Will the Prime Minister stand up for human rights, help these children, and finally suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. But we have taken a leadership role in making sure that the international community treats child migrants in a dignified manner. I think all Canadians are troubled by the images emerging from the United States. We've made our point clear with respect to making sure that we acknowledge that the lives of these precious children are important and their security and well-being should be our utmost priority. But we have taken action both domestically and internationally. We have invested $138 million to make sure that we develop alternatives to immigration detention, to make sure that moving forward.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
In October 2016, when the Prime Minister voted to support my motion regarding the Yazidis, he agreed to the term of the motion, which required that Article 5 of the Genocide Convention would be enacted by Canada. Article 5 explicitly requires us to bring perpetrators of genocide to swift justice, including those who are complicit in it. It's been almost 2 years since this vote. Why is the Prime Minister allowing Canadian ISIS genocide perpetrators to walk free?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, my heart and that of all Canadians goes out to Nadia Murad, whose courage is an inspiration to our government and to the world. We have been clear, all members in this House, that the persecution of the Yazidis in Iraq and Syria is genocide. And we are committed to working with Nadia and other Yazidi women to ensure that their case is heard in international courts. Our government is standing up for the rights of survivors. We're calling on the Security Council to recognize sexual violence as a criteria for UN sanctions.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Yet by allowing Canadian ISIS perpetrators of genocide to walk free without so much as a peace bond, the Prime Minister has broken the covenant that he made with Yazidis like Nadia when he voted for that motion. Knowing what he knows, that there are Canadians who raped and murdered for ISIS, and letting them walk free, he is complicit in denying them justice. Why is the Prime Minister more focused on giving these confessed terrorists poetry lessons instead of bringing justice to the victims of ISIS?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, our priority in dealing with these situations is to prosecute to the full extent of the law as soon as the evidence is available. I would point out that the public record shows under the previous government, terror charges were laid against 4 individuals in absentia after they had left Canada, but no charges were laid against any of the 60-some terrorists, travelers who returned to Canada under the previous government. Since 2016, 4 charges have been laid against the returnees, 2 have been convicted, and 2 others are in the process of prosecution.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. It doesn't make any sense, Mr. Speaker. Abu Huzaifa, a self-identified violent jihadist, is living freely in Toronto. The counsellor for his reintegration program said that his client has become even more radicalized by jihadist ideology. The Minister of Public Safety has said it's almost impossible to change the behavior of fundamentalists. Why is the Prime Minister continuing to fund reintegration programs for terrorists when it's clear that they don't work?
Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we use a full suite of measures to deal with these situations: surveillance, investigations, interviews, criminal charges, prosecutions wherever the evidence prevails, peace bonds, criminal code listings, no-fly listings. We hoist passports, and there are threat reduction measures as appropriate under the CSIS Act, Mr. Speaker. The determination of which of the tools are appropriate is left to the professionals in our police and security agencies. They are best positioned to make the judgment calls.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. The case of Abu Huzaifa, a name that we know, we see that he's continuing to support jihad with his friends over the web and is justifying terrorism against the West. I think that that's very clear evidence. We've seen proof of his own testimony with videos and photos and words of witnesses that prove he's guilty. I understand the Prime Minister finds it difficult to admit that he was wrong to believe that this murderer could be integrated. What else does he need to be persuaded that this terrorist needs to be brought to justice and imprisoned? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
The comments made by the honourable member seem to be drawn from various media reports, and it's always open to members of Parliament to read the press and to draw their own conclusions from what is reported in the media. In order to deal with a case in court, you actually have to have an investigation by the police force, the collection of evidence, the laying of charges, and prosecution through the criminal justice system. That is what we are trying to do while they read the press.
The honourable member for Burnaby South. Order.
Mr. Speaker, while the Trans Mountain Expansion Project may only look like a line on the map to the Natural Resources Minister, the impacts of those living in Metro Vancouver are real and potentially devastating to our community. This is why there is so much resistance to this project and why people are getting arrested to stop it. The minister acknowledges his threats to use the army against protesters were reckless, so will he condemn former Bank of Canada Governor David Dodge's comments? Then we need to somehow understand people will die protesting this pipeline.
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have their full democratic rights to express their point of view through protest and dissent. That is enshrined in Canadian law. It's protected by the Canadian Constitution. They must, however, express their points of view fully within the context of law and taking into account the public safety of others, and the laws to protect public safety will be duly enforced as they should be.
Honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
After losing what was the worst and most expensive game of Texas Hold'em in history, we now learn that the company the Liberals bought their pipeline from may have falsified evidence to the NEB. For Coldwater First Nations, 90% of their drinking water is threatened by this pipeline. You know what their backup plan is? They've got a fire truck. Chief Lee Sampson said, and I quote, "This Prime Minister is saying he wants to implement the UN Declaration. He wants to stop boil water advisories for First Nations, yet he won't look at the impact of a pipeline that goes right through our aquifer." So will the Prime Minister have the courage to actually visit Coldwater, see the impacts of his mad scheme to build a pipeline where it's not wanted and not needed?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the Trans Mountain Expansion Project was subject to the most exhaustive review in the history of pipelines in Canada. The key pillar of that review was our engagement and consultation with local communities, and our government is committed to the ongoing work of reconciliation and Indigenous peoples, and it's why we undertake an important work like the co-developed Indigenous Advisory and Monitoring Committee. Communities alongside the National Energy Board will monitor the project throughout its life cycle. Questions regarding submissions and filing to the National Energy Board should be directed directly to the NEB.
The honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Monsieur le Président, nous savons.
Mr. Speaker, we know that small and medium-sized businesses contribute significantly to Canada's economy. They help create good, well-paying jobs all across the country.
Can the Minister of Finance explain to the House how today's launch of the Canadian Business Growth Fund will help these businesses grow, compete, and create more jobs for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague, the member for Newmarket Aurora, for his question and for his important work.
The leading Canadian banks and other financial institutions announced that they're going to join together
create a fund of up to $1 billion for over 10 years to support small businesses, medium-sized businesses in our country to help them grow. More than just funding, this is going to help with guidance and mentorship and networks so that small businesses can be successful, creating jobs and growing our economy. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to thank these leading institutions for working together to help our economy to grow, helping our country.
Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, workers and families in Oshawa are concerned about the trade war between Canada and the U.S. Automakers use specialized steel imported from the U.S. in order to build its cars. A 25% tariff on autos has been threatened, which would seriously harm the Canadian auto industry. Today, TD Bank warned that these tariffs could cost 160,000 auto jobs. If 160,000 job losses isn't an emergency for this government, I don't know what it is. What is? What's the Prime Minister doing to ensure that Canadian auto workers don't lose their jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his question and for the opportunity to be very clear with Canadian auto workers that our government, and indeed I believe the entire Canadian Parliament, stands firmly with them. As regards the Section 232 investigation, the idea that Canada and Canadian cars could pose any kind of security threat to the United States is frankly absurd. This is an issue the Prime Minister has raised with the President. I have raised it with Ambassador Lighthizer, with Secretary Ross, and with Secretary Pompeo, and we are working closely with our allies in Europe, in Asia, and in Mexico on this issue.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister's kind words about all parliamentarians standing with my friends' concerns about auto are not matched by actions, because the Liberal members of the Trade Committee just refused to meet after the imposition or potential imposition of U.S. auto tariffs. We're almost a year away from the anniversary of the Minister's priority speech on NAFTA, where she did not mention the auto industry. And now we know there's 160,000 jobs at risk. Will the Minister at least confirm to this House that all reciprocal tariffs monies that Canada receives goes immediately and directly to steel, aluminum, and auto industries?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to build on the answer of my honourable colleague, the Minister of Global Affairs. Canada's automotive sector is strong and uniquely positioned to design and build the cars of today and tomorrow, and our highly skilled workforce, the driving force behind it. Our government is investing $110 million to Toyota in Cambridge to maintain 8,000 jobs, $49 million to Linamar in Guelph, creating 1,500 new jobs, $41.8 million to the Honda plant in Alliston, supporting 4,000 jobs, and $102.4 million to the Ford plant in Windsor. Mr. Speaker, we will stand with auto workers day by day, every step of the way.
Order. The Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, through his actions and his words, the Minister of Fisheries has shaken the entire fishing industry in Atlantic Canada. He has eroded the relationship and trust between fishermen and DFO. Now the minister has put in even more lobster fishermen out of work by announcing yet another closure. Lawrence Cook of the Grand Manans Fishermen Association said yesterday roughly a third of Grand Manans fleet will be impacted. That's a lot of jobs, Mr. Speaker. Why is the minister refusing to listen to reason?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, obviously we're concerned about the ability of the lobster fishery, the snow crab fishery, and other important fisheries for the economy of Atlantic Canada to continue to prosper. And that's exactly why, Mr. Speaker, we've taken very serious and very stringent science-based measures to protect the highly endangered North Atlantic right whale. Because failure to do so, Mr. Speaker, as my honourable friend knows very well, puts in jeopardy our access to international markets. That would be the single most devastating thing that could hurt the fishermen that my honourable friend pretends he cares about.
I'd ask order. Order. I'd ask the Minister of Fisheries to be cautious in his statements. I think we all care about all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, I care about it. I'm the only one that's talking to the fishermen in Atlantic Canada. This minister has shaken the confidence of the entire industry. There are groups calling for his resignation. consultation. He has met with fishermen only out of the protest, in response to their protest, not through consultation. Mr. Speaker, the pending closure is going to devastate a local economy. Workers onshore and off are going to be affected. It's the most prosperous time of year, and lobster is the engine that drives communities like Grand Manan. This will be a massive hit to the local economy. It's not too late. Will the minister meet with these people, find a compromise, and get people back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend refers to devastating economic consequences. I think it's important to understand that the area that we closed for 6 days of a 30-week season. Mr. Speaker, that fishery, as you would know well, you've been Minister of Fisheries and Oceans yourself, Mr. Speaker, that season opened in November. So the last 6 days of the season will be closed because that is a very important area for the foraging of North Atlantic right whales. And we think, Mr. Speaker, it's important to protect these iconic species and to protect the Canadian economy at the same time.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, according to Équiterre, the growing number of oil spills shows that the government is acting with blind trust in pipeline regulation. It doesn't even have reliable data because of discrepancies between the National Energy Board's data and the data of the Transportation Safety Board when it comes to pipeline incidents. If an incident isn't reported, how can the government monitor pipelines effectively? Will the Liberals make sure that they eliminate these discrepancies in the data to protect our environment? Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear on this issue. Our government, of course, is responsible for doing everything possible to get our products to market. That's good for the economy, and at the same time, we've been very clear about the issue of spills. We have put the polluter pay principle into action, and that is something that we really insist on. All pipeline companies are responsible for ensuring that if there is an incident, that they are responsible for cleaning it up. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. While the Liberals shoot themselves in the foot by buying an old leaky pipeline, we've learned that even the monitoring of pipelines is totally unreliable. In the last decade, the worst year for leaks and spills was 2017, last year. 23% of incidents happened in BC and 55% in Quebec. The system is so broken that it can take up to 8 years for an incident to be reported. 8 years. And do you know how many inspectors were sent or fines applied since 2012? None. When will the Liberals take this seriously? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
The member will know that the Pipeline Safety Act offers terrific protection against these spills. They also know that we have co-developed with Indigenous communities, both along the Enbridge Line 3 and the TMX, monitoring committees, so Indigenous peoples themselves will be very much involved in monitoring the safety of these lines, not only through the construction period, but throughout the entire life cycle. We're better positioned now than we have ever been.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, you can't say that the Liberals are great at respecting provincial jurisdiction. Ottawa knows best is one of their favourite slogans. The Liberals don't listen to the provinces or the Senate. Quebec and Manitoba are rejecting the idea of home cultivation of marijuana, and they want their regulatory powers to be respected when it comes to enforcing the legal framework around marijuana production. Will the government respect provincial jurisdiction? Yes or no?
Santé.
The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The health and safety of Canadians is a priority for our government. The Conservatives' approach under Mr. Harper didn't work. It allowed criminals to profit from our system and didn't manage to keep marijuana out of the hands of our young people. We thank the Senate for their work, and we agreed with the majority of their amendments. We are convinced that Bill C-45 will give us an opportunity to meet our objectives and to have a responsible transition towards a legal market. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, I'll try again. This Liberal government has shown that its only priority is legalizing marijuana. But there are all sorts of other issues that Canadians are more concerned about. Are the Liberals' friends putting pressure on them? Otherwise, why not take the time to do things properly? There's nothing in this bill to protect our youth or get rid of organized crime, and they're trampling provincial jurisdiction. Will this centralizing government respect the provinces like Manitoba and Quebec and allow them to ban home cultivation? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, protecting the health and safety of Canadians is an absolute priority for our government. The goal is to protect our children and to ensure that organized crime does not profit from marijuana. Home cultivation would help displace the black market. We are confident that Canadians will protect these plants and products in the same way that they keep their alcohol and prescription medication in a safe place at home. We will also be following the working group's recommendations, and we will be looking to other jurisdictions that have previously legalized marijuana. The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillé, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Well, let's try a third time. Quebec and Manitoba clearly said that they don't want home growing. It couldn't be more clear, but the Minister of Health has stubbornly insisted that she should reject these reasonable amendments from the Senate. Now the voters in Chicoutimi have sent a clear message that they reject this centralizing vision, the slogan Ottawa knows best. Will the Prime Minister finally commit to respecting the province's jurisdiction? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, once again, the health and safety of Canadians is an absolute priority for our government. We will continue to work with the provinces and territories, as well as our partners, to ensure a responsible transition towards a legal market. The Harper Conservatives' approach allowed criminals to benefit from the system and didn't protect our children. Our government is strictly legalizing and regulating access to cannabis. We are working with our partners to ensure an appropriate transition. Thank you.
Member for Fleetwood Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, with summer right around the corner, I know families from coast to coast to coast are planning to load up the car and travel our beautiful country to visit family or maybe one of our national parks. This summer's tourism season will be even busier because of the Canada-China Year of Tourism, bringing more tourists from China to Canada than ever before. In my riding of Fleetwood Port Kells, I know operators are excited about the new markets tourists are visiting Canada from. So can the Minister of Small Business and Tourism give the House an update on the progress of the Canada-China Year of Tourism?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, tourism is an important economic driver. More than 200,000, mostly small businesses, support our tourism industry, which employs 1 in 10 Canadians. 2018 is the Canada-China Year of Tourism, and this week I will be leading a federal, provincial, and territorial tourism trade mission to China with members of the Canadian tourism industry, including Indigenous operators, that will highlight the world-class experiences we offer right here in Canada. As part of Canada's new tourism vision, we are committed to doubling the number of Chinese visitors to Canada by 2021, and I look forward to working with my colleague from Fleetwood Port Kells to make this year the best year for tourism. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister continues to fail our armed forces on the fighter jet file. He's refused to hold a timely, open competition and fabricated an imaginary capability gap. It's clear the Prime Minister has no idea what he's doing. And now the Liberals are increasing the number of 30-year-old fighter jets they're buying from Australia from 18 to 25. Will the Prime Minister stop wasting taxpayers' money and cancel this asinine interim purchase?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, our government is committed to providing the Royal Canadian Air Force with the critical equipment it needs to be fully operational to now and into the future. We have started the competition to replace the current F-18s, and yes, we are purchasing 18 airplanes as well as additional planes as part to maintain these aircraft. Mr. Speaker, but given the member's concern for the state of the Royal Canadian Air Force asset, I'd like to ask the member why him and his colleagues voted against important projects like the Canadian Surface Combatant and the Fixed Wing Search and Rescue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Desnethie, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Thursday is National Indigenous Peoples Day, part of a week of festivities where people from across the country celebrate the cultures and legacies of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in Canada. All week there will be ceremonies, concerts, meals, and dancing. Despite all these events, many Canadians won't be able to join these celebrations. This government talks about reconciliation but fails to meet their obligations to Indigenous communities. Why won't the Liberals support my bill to make National Indigenous Peoples' Day a statutory holiday?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite for drawing attention to the fact that this Thursday is National Indigenous Peoples Day. I encourage people to go online at canada.ca to see all of the activities that are taking place across the country, including many here in the National Capital Region. Our government has embarked on a renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples, one based on a recognition and implementation of rights on the basis of respect and partnership. This will be a great day to celebrate that new relationship.
Honourable Member for South Surrey White Rock.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The recent shooting deaths of two young youths in Surrey, one of them in grade 10 and the other in grade 11, are the most recent in an intolerable number of shootings and deaths that have occurred in our community. And many residents have suffered intolerable losses and emotional pain. And many are frustrated, frightened, and angry. To the Minister of Public Safety, please tell us what actions government is taking to reduce gun violence and the impact of gangs on our youth.
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Speaker, Canada is a safe country, but over the past 5 years, indeed, gun and gang violence has been increasing. We are committed to combating these trends and making our communities safer through a package of common sense measures. Bill C-71 is one of those. It will enact measures to better protect Canadian communities from gun violence. And today we released a report on the recent summit on guns and gangs. This report will help determine how best to allocate some $327 million to tackle gun-related violence and gang activities in Canada.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, we note that the commissioners into the National Inquiry for Missing Indigenous Women and Girls asked for a 2-year extension, but the minister granted them 6 months. Why only 6 months? Because, to quote the minister, it would be important for the government to have time to respond to the final report before we go into an election. Can the minister guarantee that this timeline is not political opportunism and is really going to give the inquiry the time to do the work that needs to get done?
Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, we were pleased to give the inquiry some more time to hear from families and to be able to write their report. We believe we gave a very substantial response to the interim report that will be able to deal with commemoration and healing and the kinds of work on policing and sexism and racism that we need to get on with right now. We have always said we wouldn't wait till the final report to get on with our actions, and we're doing just that, and we look forward to their final report next spring.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' track record for this session clearly shows they only had one priority: marijuana. When Quebec asks for more time to do things properly, Ottawa doesn't care. When the National Assembly opposes the idea of having 4 marijuana plants per household, the Prime Minister mocks Quebec voters. When Quebec wants to slow down the pace, Ottawa says no. When will the Prime Minister understand that marijuana isn't a priority for anyone except him and marijuana-growing Liberals? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, protecting the health and safety of Canadians is a priority for our government. The current approach to cannabis isn't working. It has allowed criminals to profit from the system, and it hasn't protected our children. We thank the Senate for all the work they've done, and we accepted the majority of their amendments. We are convinced that Bill C-45 will give us an opportunity to meet our objectives and to ensure a responsible transition toward a legal marijuana market. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, if marijuana was the Prime Minister's #1 priority, well, I can tell you what was not a priority for the Liberal government this session, which is drawing to a close now. Tackling tax havens, managing the migration crisis, fighting climate change, having appropriate health transfers, or contracts for the Davie shipyard. A single form to file our taxes, perhaps, but that's certainly not a priority for them. When will the Prime Minister start focusing on Quebecers' real priorities? Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, once again, protecting the health and safety of Canadians is a priority for our government. We are working with all of our partners to ensure a responsible transition toward the legal market. The current approach has allowed organized crime to benefit, and it hasn't protected our children. Our government is going to legalize and strictly regulate marijuana to protect our children. We are working with partners to ensure that an appropriate date is set. Thank you. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-Ville. Mr. Speaker, now the Senate apparently cares more about Quebec than all of the 41 Liberal ghost members from Quebec. The Senate is more in line with Quebec than the Liberal Party. I never would have thought that I would say that. But the senators are more tuned into this than the Prime Minister. All of this could end up before the courts. And once again, Quebec's provincial jurisdiction will be trampled. Will the Prime Minister and the government commit to not challenging Quebec's desire in court? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again, protecting the health and safety of Canadians is an absolute priority for us. The current approach to marijuana is not working. It has allowed criminals to benefit from the system, and it hasn't protected our young people. We thank the Senate for all the work they did in the recent months, and we have accepted the great majority of their amendments. We are convinced that Bill C-45 will give us an opportunity to meet our objectives and to have a responsible transition toward a legal market. Thank you.
The
Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques is rising on a point of order.
Well, I was asking questions, and the same for the member for Vancouver East. The member for St. Albert Edmonton seemed to have pretty strong views that he was heckling. Now, you never know really what is being said when one's heckled, but I'd like to extend a friendly hand, invite him to actually go to the foyer where he can actually use a camera and a microphone to express his support for Trump's migrants policy.
I obviously encourage members not to be heckling and to pay attention when others have the floor, because it's awfully hard for them to even hear what you're saying if you're talking to them when they're trying to speak. Doesn't make much sense. So we need to have order. In the meantime, it being 3:10 p.m., pursuant to order made on Tuesday, May 29, 2018, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the previous question at the third reading stage of Bill C-69. Calling the members.